Good to catch up again with Andrew Partridge from Michell Wool. Another look at this week's wool market. Andrew, how are you going?
Yeah, very well. Yourself?
Well, I think you and I are probably going a lot better than the wool market, at least if you're a seller. It seems grumpy, or has it actually got a bit of indigestion?
It's not a bad assumption, actually. Yeah, indigestion's quite a bit of a word. We've got plenty of wool sort of coming forward as we come into the spring, but we're sort of stalling. The price of the wool in US terms and overseas terms is actually quite attractive, but the tummies seem to be full enough over there and a bit grumpy overseas, so we're just sort of dribbling wool back into the markets. We've got South Africa come back online. They've had their since April, they've had their foot and mouth problems, and China hasn't been taking their wool, so they're sort of starting to take their wool again, mate. But a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I spoke with, I think, Jo Hall from Wool Producers, the CEO there, and she mentioned they've been working with the South Africans before they had their latest foot and mouth outbreak about working to get back into the Chinese market, and then lo and behold, they had another outbreak. So, that's always a worry.
There's just been reduction of sort of inquiry coming down, and there's been sales happening, week in, week out, but you just don't get the big lots of sales going forward. So, little lower currency obviously this morning, so we're a little bit hopeful next week. It'll be so around those couple of cents in, but just can't tip the uptrend in the moment. Maybe another couple of weeks of sort of bit of a misery in the market. Hopefully things change sort of from October onwards.
Well, I deliberately used the term indigestion earlier because maybe there's a bit of a gas problem when it comes to Europe. Spot
on. Yeah, a lot of email, a lot of rhetoric coming out of Europe at the moment with the price of gas, and obviously processing wool, they use a lot of energy to dry the wool, obviously, once it's scoured, and then heating the water in the scours when they're processing wool. So a lot of energy use, and a lot of mills and business owners over there scratching their head. They've booked wool up, obviously. They book wool a long way forward over in Europe, so we give them sort of 120, 180-day terms. So we've booked business that will be sent over there, and then they've been whacked with this extra energy cost, and they're scratching their heads wondering how they're going to pass that cost on, because it's happening now. It's happening in the last month or two. It's going up 10 and 20% sort of nearly weekly.
Yep, and that's a subject I think is coming up not just in the wool sector but across the board in terms of a new market player. Again, though, it dribbles backwards to Russia and its decision about what it does with its own resources off the back of its conflict with Ukraine. But the way that conflict seems to be just kicking on and continuing, it's going to have some longer-term impacts in the market.
Yeah, it will, unfortunately. Yeah, I think it's the new world we're sort of living in at the moment, so we've just got to cope with it. Look, the price of, well, like I say, in overseas terms, there's nothing wrong with the price. It's just that lack of sort of glowing light at the end of the tunnel that's going to give everyone a bit of confidence.
Now, with this grumpy or indigestion market we've got at the moment, it does look like despite a healthy initial offering, we're sort of drifting back to roughly where the offerings usually are around the same time this year.
Yeah, that's the way everything will start to for some positives. So there's 40,000 barrel national offerings are seen as a good sort of average market, generally going back over time, and anything under 30,000 is probably seen as a low offering. So while we're puttering around in that 30 to 40,000 barrel offering, that's okay. But again, can't stress that the demand side of things is a bit weaker. EMI in US terms is now plumbing down to $9. I like the $10 number going back over time. It seems to like that number when demand's good, but we're going back to that sort of $9 price, and looking at the low of the averages, obviously for a lot of prices of wool now.
Where does that sit us, that sort of $9 we're heading at the moment? I can only look at sort of a year back. We're not that far back in the past we were around that level?
No, that's right. We're looking probably a couple of years ago now. We've spent the last 2 years obviously in that sort of $9.50 to $10.50 sort of range, and averaging about 10 in the last couple of years. So you've got to go back to that last 3 to 5 years before those prices have been low. And you look at the desal sort of prices for wool now, it's well back behind, for 2019 and 21, they're sort of in the 20 to 30 desals. 17 microns are getting cheaper, but they're in the 70 desals, and crossbred's obviously still terrible.
Well, the market looks a bit like a lawnmower. It's gotten cold. We've got to give that chain a few more yanks. Hopefully next week we've got some upward movement for the sellers.
Yes, mate. Hope so. Cross the fingers.